God Games by James Scott. Chapter 1. Yahweh. 3,100 years after the Holy Nuclear War. On a cold gray morning, tall waves of grass brush against the peach orchard that surrounds a large polygon-shaped home. Blue light streams out from the second-floor bathroom window and fades into the mist. Inside the bathroom, sleepy Professor Yahweh Tabris slowly shuffles over to a tall black glass hollow mirror. He can only assume a crooked stance this early in the morning. What with the cigar smoke and whiskey from the previous night with Raphael still swirling in his stomach. No doubt a cruel joke from that fat man. The hollow mirror flickers, goes dark, and then finally lights up to show an exact 3D image of Yahweh, along with a flashing medical alert. BP 195/90. Once again, unable to get a good night's sleep, the 42-year-old quietly sighs. It has been 4 days since he last went to the lab. Yahweh unfurls his arms in front of the panel's sonic soother to quiet his nerves and blood pressure. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow, or maybe the day after. Yahweh slides his hand across the pepper gray stubble on his face, then stares down at the floor. It can't be avoided. He'll have to meet his new university dean at some point. New? Not really. They started out from the same school many years ago, but that guy took a different path, a slick one, covered it with hazy, sugar-coated dog whistle code words, not meant to be understood by all. And that ministerial fever of his generated a fervid following, so very different from heaven's dispassion. Now that movement, once well contained, has swelled. No, it can't be avoided. Have to meet him at some point. Yahweh stared at his image in the hollow mirror, which seems to add the new dean's image next to his. Bigger, better, more respected and harder to resist. His proselytization almost worked last time. Now he's here and will certainly pick up where he left off. He wants to meet with me. Why me? The hollow mirror flicks, then goes black. Yahweh explodes with a fist against the darkened mirror. Shit! Why me? A sharp crackling sound comes out from behind the flat hollow mirror. Yahweh slowly reaches over with his forefinger to investigate. Didn't strike the damn thing that hard. As he does, static electricity jumps from his finger to the darkened hollow mirror. The fixture suddenly glows brighter, once again, showing an unshaven face and slouched stance. Yahweh straightens with a jerk, smiles back at his image and mumbles, "So, looks like I can bring this back to life, too." Please, allow me to introduce myself. On the great scientific university campus, 10-story-high laboratory buildings sit within bowl-shaped glass structures that squat like half-buried pearls in the grassland. Here, new ideas grow like weeds within the white walls and sculpted stone columns of these scientific hothouses, which look more like steepleless cathedrals than research labs. On the 7th floor of one laboratory building, Yahweh peers into a miniature 3D holographic image that glows on the table before him. Wavy images of static electricity dance in a column of air above the holographic platform. They merge and form a bright blue blob of electromagnetic energy. Yahweh smiles as he eases the controller forward. The blue blob begins to move toward the left side of the view platform. Spinny threads of light, deep blue in color, are from the ball's surface as it slides over the holographic image of a black box and disappears inside. A voice booms over his right shoulder. "What is that?" Yahweh knocks his thumb against the controller, then drop as they settle on the broad shoulders of a tall man cloaked in a black vestment that shivers all the way down to his shined shoes. Can't be avoided any longer. "Please, allow me to introduce myself," the intruder begins. "I am Professor Lucifer DeVille, the new dean of the Quantum Thermodynamics Department and vice chair of the Ancient Religion Department." "Yes," Yahweh says, his eyes fixed back to his work. "We've met before." Then he turns to eye the glossy red lining inside the tall man's black cape. The getup seems theatrical. This is a university, not a bullfighting arena. Professor DeVille gazes back with dark, pupilless eyes. Finally, after a delayed recognition, he nods with a deep, Good to see you again. Then, his eyes suddenly shift to the replayed holographic image in the black box as it swallows the blue magnetic lightning ball. He motions to the experiment and rumbles again. What is that? Yahweh leans away, then takes a breath. It's a device that can hold migrating electromagnetic fields generated by humans. Huh. I have heard of this work of yours. You think those magnetic fields have something to do with the human essence? That's right, Yahweh says. It's called a soul, chides Professor DeVille. I know. Well, at least you recognize which Corbibitor gave us all. Rumors continued to swirl up and down the campus halls about this Professor DeVille, a scientist who also leads a religious cult. Religion? Here? In heaven? How can that be? But as Yahweh's father always said, forget your history and you're bound to repeat it. Everyone on campus seems to have an opinion. Most think religion has no place in heaven anymore, but the tall man's growing shadow suggests otherwise. Yahweh heaves in a heavy sigh. Staying home for 7 days to avoid this guy obviously wasn't long enough. Lucifer must have been waiting in the lab all of this time. Now he's inspecting the computer simulation, like he's trying to find something wrong with it. Yahweh's stomach growls at the incongruity before him. So, Yahweh faces the tall man, a living paradigm of heaven's cantankerous coordination, like opposing poles on the same magnet, and continues their argument started so long ago. How can you be a scientist and a preacher at the same time? Lucifer sighs. You spend your entire life searching for the secrets of the science that Corbibitor created, but that is something your soul already knows. You should not waste the time Corbitor granted you. Praise him instead. So, my interest in science is purely coincidental. It helps me to navigate within our society, since everyone is expected to love science like a foolish child takes to simple magic tricks. Science is not magic. It's a rational explanation for the world around us. Yes, the world around us. Corbitor gave us these things, you know. There he goes again. There are other points of view, but only one truth. Trying to convert me again? Just want to save you, brother. With irrational explanations. The same can be said about science, but Corbitor, not science, created everything around us. The trees, the birds, the planets, the stars. Yahweh interrupts. And fear, bigotry, groupthink, sacrificing non-believers, and... Lucifer interrupted the interruption. Those things happened to people who could not see the wonder that Corbitor is. He has given us order from randomness. He protects us from our enemies. He offers us a way of life that is peaceful and fulfilling. The syrupy gospel seeps into Yahweh's teeth, right down to the nerve. That's the greatest bullshit story ever told. No, it is a promise of salvation and grace. A picture of peace and harmony. Peace and harmony, smiles Yahweh, where only certain people can see or hear Corbitor and everyone else should do as they say. Yes, Corbitor gave us holy men. You mean shamans, priests, and politicians, to ensure that his commandments are properly interpreted. So Corbitor help you if you didn't follow these holy men, because there are plenty of zealots who were only too happy to kill non-believers even if they died in the process. They were commanded by Corbitor. Yahweh's eyes roll as Lucifer continues. They knew that the faithful serve as Corbitor's tools. That is the only way that they can ascend to the sight of his right side in paradise, a land filled with milk and honey. So, that excuses suicide bombers who walk up to you and go boom? That was a good thing, huh? Lucifer's eyebrows furrow. That can happen when you threaten Corbitor's way of life. Sometimes we have to take drastic steps for the greater good of humanity. So pain, suffering, and death are preferable to the loving free will gene? For the greater good of humanity, of course. Lucifer's eyes darken. Loving free will gene. Ha! That's a fallacy. Something scientists whipped up in a lab. Lucifer, you know the indisputable proof that cobalt-uranium X radiation from the Holy Nuclear War produced the loving free will gene, a super-dominant gene that didn't exist in humans prior to the war. So, science has discovered some freakish gene. So what? So, you know those freakish genes have changed us significantly. Yahweh points to the back of his amber-toned hand and stares at Lucifer. Now everyone is the same color in heaven. Wasn't that way before the war. Lucifer frowns at the back of his hand, then glances away. Show me the proof that this mutant gene of yours has given peace and common fellowship to everyone. Yahweh drops his stare to the thin white streaks on the black marble floor. They look like the tiny cracks in theories about what the loving free will gene actually does. Well, it helps humans make free will decisions driven by an understanding of what it means to suffer not only our own pain, but also the pain of others. Now, Lucifer's eyes rolled. You mean that it makes people docile with wagging tails to please some phantom master gene? Better than trying to please some phantom god. Since you do not have the answers, perhaps you should study good things that have happened over the eons since Corbitor revealed his presence. Now, a true scientist has no bias and follows the facts wherever they lead. That is still true, is it not, Professor? The point silences Yahweh. With his arms slightly open, Lucifer goes, As you know, Corbitor tells us he is us and we are he, that he is all around us. You also know that there are many different religions, and 3 of the great religions came together and discovered the true meaning of our lives, Corbitor. However, all of this was not easy for everyone to accept. It is like the challenges you face when you discover new science. Not everyone agrees at once, requiring steadfast persuasion. Similarly, it took the sacrifices of 3 men just to bring to spread Corbitor's word and blessing. One man was nailed to a wooden cross, another poisoned, and the third stoned. They gave their lives to bring our attention to the one true God of peace. Yahweh lifts his eyes from the floor to meet Lucifer's gaze. Okay, those martyrs united 3 religions into one, which went on to start a holy nuclear war with everyone else. How compassionate. Lucifer stared back with a hardened smile. That was a long time ago. But look around. Now we are free from hunger and disease with our matter antimatter power plants, ZapQuest travel, and nanobots. Sure, you can see how his work in those hologram images of magnetic fields over there. But can you also feel his essence, peace and love around you? Yahweh holds back a smirk. His peace and love come from elsewhere. Instead, he gestures around the lab. Those things come from science, not your god. Lucifer ignores Yahweh's protest. Eternal peace will not come until we are all one with Corbitor. Those who do not believe are the real cause of war. They will bring Corbitor's wrath down on all of us. So, the sooner that you see the light, the sooner my work be done. So, final peace will not come until everyone thinks like you. You twist my words, friend. Corbitor commands us to protect our traditions until we all have taken him into our hearts. We might have to do things that we do not want to do to get to where we need to be. So, the ends justify the means, and by any means necessary, Lucifer says with satisfaction. Does that include Corbitor's grand inquisitions? What about him? They tortured non-believers. That was necessary. So, for the greater good of humanity, crucifixion is preferable to helping the people feel empathy for the pain of others. We all must endure our own personal sufferings, some more than others. Believe me, I knew. Know what? Lucifer's eyes dropped ever so briefly. I knew that this is all in accordance to his wishes, so we must all come to know, love, and exist with him, in who is Corbitor, our one, true, and everlasting God. Everlasting. But who created Corbitor? He always existed, so there was no need for his creation. But how do you know that Corbitor exists in the first place? Have you two had tea and crumpets recently? I knew, because our holy book says so. But how do you know your holy books are correct? Because our holy books were inspired by Corbitor. Don't give me that pretzel logic crap! Lucifer's eyes narrow as his chest expands. God will wipe out non-believers with his armies, my brother. That will never happen again. There are no religious armies here anymore, and I am not your brother. The tall professor leans in and whispers, "Open your eyes," and then marches off. Lucifer's cape flaps in the turbulence of the tall man's exit, a sure sign of how this meeting with new management went. Like barreling over a cliff. Maybe a more tolerant approach should have been taken, held back some. Too late now. But at least the indoctrination is over and there is no pressure to put anything into the collection plate. Now able to work in peace, Yahweh opens a small cabinet and takes out a small black box he designed to mimic waves of human electromagnetic energy. He rearranges the crow's nest of spindly light and power cables laced within the device. As Yahweh works, a music box plays in a nearby room. The faint metallic tones accompany his relief that Lucifer didn't realize he had actually built a device that can capture a person's soul. But perhaps it wouldn't be wise to say that this unit captures souls. Maybe the word store is more appropriate. Yes, soul storage sounds better. Suddenly, there's a loud crash from behind him. Yahweh ducks for cover, ready to spring away from what sounds like Lucifer's return. Then, the room goes silent, and a slight acrid odor from a dark adjacent office tempts investigation. Now what? Sneaking in, Yahweh checks the gray corner of that dim room. No one here. Turning on the lights, he checks a power converter. No problem there. Then, his gaze follows a steamy residual trail to its source, a bursted specimen bottle he used to boil water for tea. Gwendolyn, his wife, grows chamomile in their garden. The leaves make a better tea than the food assembler, although, as she once told him, there's more work involved than just watching it magically appear in a glass box. So Yahweh decided to experiment with the idea, that is, to make tea the hard way by heating water. But the test only produced lukewarm results. You should first boil the water, Gwendolyn later told him. Then put the leaves in. Now Yahweh's lips tighten as he eyes the jagged glass bottle, with the black rubber stopper still stuck inside. It's a result any 5-year-old science student could predict, but at least that's all it was, a flubbed experiment. Nevertheless, as he picks up the shards, Yahweh looks around once more, to be sure that Lucifer hasn't returned, to pick him apart. But the day is still young. The Centurion. The next morning, Yahweh, back in the bathroom in front of the sonic soother, stares again at the face stubble that has appeared and grumbles, "I'll do that later." Then he looks around for a white lab jacket, but a clean one is not to be found. No matter. The wrinkled one in the laundry hamper will be just fine. The grubby, ankle-length alb feels like an oversized rag, and there's an unusual smell somewhere. But a quick sniff under the armpits reveals nothing as he shuffles toward the hallway. The sound of child laughter and fast-approaching footsteps greets him as he turns the corner into the hallway. Just as Yahweh walks in, a kiddie freight train led by a large robotic dog made of foam rubber covered with an orange shaggy hair and chased by 2 howling children roars past him. Their wake almost knocks him down. He steadies himself and groans as he makes his way along the hallway and down the stairs. He pauses before going into the playroom. Best to look both ways before going in. The barking android dog and kitty train blows by Gwendolyn, who sits unperturbed on a cushioned chair. The gaze of her soft brown eyes puts a smile on Yahweh's grumpy face, something the sonic soother could never do. Gwendolyn's medium-length brown hair brushes against the shoulder of her plump yet well-proportioned body as she rises to greet Yahweh. She wraps him in a tight hug. Her hypnotic gaze and warm embrace relieve the pressure in Yahweh's body. Just what's needed. Their 2 kids, 9-year-old Mary and 10-year-old Alexander, return to the playroom. Knee pain from his encounter with the kitty train streaks up Yahweh's leg as he scolds, "Don't you kids say good morning anymore, and shouldn't you be getting ready for school?" "Good morning, Daddy," bursts out Mary as a shy Alexander leans his skinny frame against Yahweh. Their greeting warms the pain right out of Yahweh's knee. He gazes down on a seemingly inseparable kids. Mary's chestnut eyes, just like her mom's, and Alexander's stringy, fidgety frame draped in baggy clothing. Can't stay angry at that. Yahweh's attention returns to Gwendolyn, who looks not quite all right. She waves off his concern, but he persists. As Alexander and Mary watch, Yahweh guides Gwendolyn back to her chair, then waves a small medical device in front of her. It downloads information gathered by her body-embedded medical scanner. The diagnosis scrolls across the device's screen as holographic images projected onto the playroom's wall confirm Yahweh's suspicion: a bacterial infection. "You must have picked up some microbe while gardening," he says. "Probably one altered by nuclear war." He then leans in close and whispers so the kids can't hear. "This could be serious if not treated quickly. We need to call the medical center." She gives a lethargic wave. "I'm all right. Just a long day in the garden, that's all." Yahweh ignores her protests and motions to the holographic video wall. "I think we need a doctor here." The holographic germs on the video wall disappear. Then a 3D image of a rotating red cross appears as a soothing woman's voice announces, "A doctor is on the way." "Yahweh, there's no need," Gwendolyn protests quietly. "I'll be fine. You had a busy day yesterday. You should rest." Memories of Gwendolyn's mother, who died 3 years ago from an untreated infection, still haunt Yahweh. She was too slow to seek help. "I'll rest when the bugs are taken care of," he insists as Gwendolyn's smile quiets the turbulent reflection. Then, a bright blue light reflects off those chestnut-brown eyes of hers. The flash to the quantum entanglement substance transportation. Quest satellite network announces the arrival of a visitor from the Great Scientific University Medical Nanobot Institute. Zapped in from over 2,000 miles away, a man with long gray hair and a white frock makes a house call. Yahweh looks on with disappointment as the relic leans heavily on the wood cane. The old-timer returns the scrutiny and grunts. "You the patient?" "My wife," Yahweh tells the old man as he escorts him to Gwendolyn. The old man totters over to Gwendolyn and greets her with a smile, revealing large pearly white teeth. As he unpacks his small bag, he asks with a soft, grandfatherly voice, "What's wrong, my child?" "Nothing," Gwendolyn answers. "Just a slight fever, that's all." "Ah, well, let's see about that," the doctor responds. He waves his medical scanner at her and then sets it down and slowly moves his wrinkled fingers to check the skin on her hands, arms, and forehead. Yahweh eyes the crinkled and slightly overweight man who, though standing, seems no taller than the seated Gwendolyn. "Gramps must be 100. Pardon me, but are you the right person? We requested a medical consolidation, not a chair massage." "Don't trust these damn scanners," the centenarian growls as he holds the back of his hand against Gwendolyn's forehead. "I like to check myself." He touches the medical scanner again with his trembling finger to review the report. His bowed body rocks back and forth slightly while he reads it, ever so slowly. Yahweh, growing impatient, clears his throat. Should we call the medical consultant?" The old man's eyes dart about as he continues to read the scanner. "Maybe we should get a second opinion here," snaps Yahweh. Suddenly, Gramps' eyes peer out from beneath thick lashes to examine Yahweh. "Young man, I've been doctoring around this world long before you were shot out of Nut City, and I've got more medical degrees than follicles on your hairy ass." Not sure how to respond, Yahweh backs off. Satisfied, Gramps turns back to his work. "I've seen this bug many times, from the war, you know. There are 500 variations, so must double check, but no big problem here." After he confirms his diagnosis, the old doctor prepares an ointment filled with Medibots. "This has the right sort of bots to destroy the germ." Familiar with the procedure, Yahweh tells Gwendolyn, "These Medibots will destroy the bacteria causing your illness." Yahweh then peppers the centenarian with questions. "Are these N2-type Medibots or the older Y-type bots? What about the secondary infection? Gwendolyn is a gardener, you know. Needs to ensure that she can fight off reinfections." "These are N3 bots. Relapse improbable," growls the old man. Yahweh fires off another volley. "I heard the medical center is rolling out N5 Medibots designed to stay in the body. How is that coming along? Any idea when those will be available? And what's happening with the N6 self-replicating bots?" Gramps' thick gray brow cocks up at Yahweh again. At the same moment, a mental tug pulls Yahweh's attention to Gwendolyn's soft brown eyes. She doesn't speak a word, but her voice is loud and clear in his head. "Now, make me proud. Hush." Yahweh turns to Gramps, who looks ticked and backs off. Probably best to let the old fart do his work to avoid another gutter wisecrack. But he quietly analyzes every step the doctor takes to apply the Medibots to Gwendolyn's arm. They'll be absorbed directly through the skin, Yahweh tells her. Gramps grunts in agreement as he uses a medical scanner to monitor the Medibot's progress. Still a respectful, distant way, Yahweh uses his own device to track the Medibots. The Medibots report their status as they quickly attack and neutralize the bacterial invaders. Within 15 minutes, they even detect and destroy a microscopic tumor on Gwendolyn's left kidney. After they've done their job, the bots migrate from the body onto moistened gauze that Gramps wrapped around her thumb. Yahweh grins widely as Gramps collects, counts, and deactivates the Medibots. They've done their job. I concur with your medical opinion, says Gramps with rolled eyes as he packs up his little black bag and makes his electronic exit from the premises. About time that old geezer zapped away. But it's also time to head off to the university. Seems like a full challenging day has already happened, what with the kids, caring for Gwendolyn, and enduring the old medical fossil. And now there's going to be another headache with Lucifer again. He'd probably sneak back in the lab like before. As they head off to school, Yahweh kisses Mary and Alexander. But as he kisses Gwendolyn, the thought of yet another contest, this time a verbal bout with Lucifer, is too much. Think I'll go in later. Gonna go to the garden, he tells her. You mean under the garden? Gwendolyn says with a smile. Yahweh smiles back as he heads out. Yeah, under. Lord of the Ants. A warm, sweet, earthy aroma fills the tight entrance that leads down to a long tunnel. Supported by a curved plexiglass wall that breaks through the ground surface, the open-floored passageway snakes through every corner of the garden and adjacent peach grove. What started out as a simple hobby, a way to calm his mind, has turned into a third great passion, myrmecology. It's not the same as physics, his second passion. The rewards are different, and not at all like receiving the university's Professor Plantitious Award, a rare honor despite his occasional blunders. Rather, the study of ants is an opportunity to see how life is lived. Yahweh stands, motionless before the ants' intricate chambers as they tend to their nurseries, feed their young, and go about their daily chores like tiny dynamos specifically designed for the underground world. Ant and human civilization. So many similarities. It's time to move on to catalog a new colony in the southwest corner of the garden. They are a special variety of ants with long, spidery legs and a long, thin torso that strings together 3 bulbous body sections. Their subterranean existence hints at what it may have been like when all of humankind was forced underground for generations after the war. But unlike ants, humans would never have survived. Not without the underground factories built before the Crusades. Then, from the corner of his eye, Yahweh spots a stingy horde of ants scrambling down a nearby tunnel that leads to the southwest ant colony. They are a different sort of ant, with short, thick legs that support their stocky 2-sectioned bodies and oversized claws. It's a gruesome scene as 2 massive ants from the raiding party crawl over a member of the southwestern colony. They pin the ant down while another uses its giant pincer to snip in half the struggling victim. Yahweh sinks away from the battle to find a more peaceful setting. But today is not a good day to be a formidicide as he comes across another colony of ants, puny in size and sluggish. Their dull and shriveled eggs lie prone in the underground hatchery filled with ants. Some move about while others, well, it's too late for them. The painful view feels all too familiar, produced by that same lame response to challenges like this and Lucifer. Turn the other cheek, hope for the best. Ugh, no matter the blood pressure is so high, something's real action's gotta be done. So, Yahweh scrambles to the garden's surface. There, he kneels next to the ant mound and with his hands held above the dying colony's entrance, sprinkles wet breadcrumbs. Now a delightful feeling swells out from that damned headache as the ants swarm out from the mound to pluck up the food and bring it down to their chambers. So he decides to do it again. The next morning, Yahweh sprinkles more wet breadcrumbs around the colony's entrance. Once again, the ants swarm out to bring the bread underground. This time, the once puny ants are robust and vigorous. Yes, feeding this colony will be a daily routine. On the 5th day, a tall ant mound suddenly appears where the scrawny colony entrance once was. But where are the ants? Miffed at the ingrate's mysterious absence, Yahweh places a small camera above the ant mound to spy on the actions while away at the university. There he watches intently as the ants, by the hundreds, continue to build up their mounds higher and higher as if to reach a divine hand. Well, it appears that they are beholden indeed. Excited, Yahweh shows anyone and everyone at the university, pointing at the video ant images as he tells the young university students about their colonies, their lives, their toils, their conflicts, and what he did to save the colony from famine. His voice rises with excitement as he describes the similarities between ants and humans, how both wage war, build complex societies, and how their industrial might doesn't always overcome natural catastrophes or war. But there is one main difference. While a human can step in to save an ant colony, there is no one to step in to save us. Quest. As he prepares to head to the university, Yahweh reaches for a clean lab coat and sighs. There are none. Once again, he forgot to activate the clothes bin cleaner. So, like before, he opens the cleaning bin and pulls out the cleanest alb he can find. It's equally yellowed, but it'll do. Besides, a dingy alb is the least of the problems, as the thought of seeing Lucifer produces a louder than expected groan. But Lucifer hasn't invaded the lab since that first encounter 7 days ago. Probably moved on to convert someone else, Yahweh sniffs as he snuffs the other alb back into the cleaning bin. Before he heads off, Yahweh checks in on Gwendolyn. I see you forgot to activate your cleaning bin, chides Gwendolyn as she inspects the alb before deciding to embrace him. Well, at least this one isn't coated with dirt. Yahweh exhales slowly, glad to be back in Gwendolyn's arms once again. But it would be nice if she held him tighter. As if on cue, Gwendolyn squeezes him hard. This always happens. It was as though she could read his mind. What a wonderful feeling it is that she can reach down and comfort the perpetual little kid inside. Absent-minded, isolated, scared, and flustered, then nudge him back to peaceful reality. As they kiss goodbye, her chestnut brown eyes mesmerize him. Then she says, "Make me proud of you." Her effect will last the entire day. To begin his commute to the great scientific university in the northern hemisphere, 3,000 miles away, Yahweh thinks to himself the word quest. Take me to my lab. A tiny computer on his shirt, no larger than a grain of sand, recognizes his thoughts, command, and sends a signal to a Quest satellite high overhead. In response, the Quest satellite sends 2 pairs of electromagnetic beams down to the planet. One pair converges on Yahweh, while the second pair merges in his lab half a world away. A foggy mist of entangled atomic particles materializes around Yahweh and in his faraway laboratory. One of the Quest satellite beams scans Yahweh. His body dissolves in a flesh of blue light. In less than 10 seconds from the time that he thought the words, the Quest satellite zaps Yahweh from the family playroom to his lab at the great scientific university in heaven. Temptation. In a room adjacent to his laboratory, hidden behind a thick white curtain, Yahweh lifts an oval device that resembles an oversized white football. It's a muscle-straining task to steady the heavy object while at the same time threading 2 rather large parallel aluminum rods through an extreme end, then connect several tiny hoses and optic cables as they cast an eerie red light against the device's polished surface. But finally, a faint blue glow and hum from the device signals success and permission to blow out a soft exhale of relief. Now, with the envious ease and dexterity, those parallel aluminum rails move the oval device up and down above a long black marble table. Then it pauses, as if for applause. The device's faint blue glow suddenly flashes red, as if quivering with a crackling sound. After a while, the shaking stops, and a soft blue glow returns as the unit slides peacefully along the track. Then, the aluminum rails lower, and the blue device to a fraction of an inch above the marble table, just as planned. The blue glow flickers as it changes to indigo, followed by violet, then red. Then a loud raspy noise fills the room as the device skims just a hair's width above the table. The red glow turns orange as translucent biogel sprays from the bottom of the oval device onto the marble table, like ink on paper. Now the oval device picks up speed as it moves along its aluminum track with a coarse sound. And with each swipe along the table, layer after layer of biogel build up to become three-dimensional shape. Satisfied, Yahweh rubs his bristled face, emulating the prickly noise from the bioprinting machine as it slides back and forth. Then a voice booms out. "Another invention, Professor!" That deep voice is enough to make his heart jump, and there's the source of that unwanted interruption. Lucifer, standing there on the other side of the marble table. But instead of that morbid black suit and red-lined cape, a white lab coat covers the man's 7-foot frame. For such a large man, this guy moves rather quietly. "We'll have to put a bell on that lab door." Lucifer stares at Yahweh intently. "You spend so much time in here." Yahweh stares back at Lucifer's white lab coat, which is pristinely pressed, unlike his own wrinkled lab coat that's any color but white. The tall man's gaze and dark eyes seem intent on something, so might as well answer him. It's what I like to do." "You mean this is all you do? Nothing else?" Lucifer asks. Yahweh thinks of his first passion, Gwendolyn, who always seems to be with him, even when they're far apart. Even now, he can feel her presence like a lighthouse beacon. "I spend a lot of time with my wife," Yahweh says softly as he readjusts the computer controls. "Then there's my ant farm at home and my colleagues here." Lucifer strokes the bottom of his bearded chin. Yes. I've been meaning to speak with you about your colleagues." As the oval bioprinter head slides to a halt, Lucifer steps around the long table that separates them. He glances suspiciously at the pinkish layer of solidified biogel that now looks like a slab of meat ready for the grill. "I feel like you misunderstood my intentions when we spoke last, and that has caused a rift between us, you know?" Then Lucifer's eyes brighten slightly. "Surely we can discover that friendship we had so long ago." "Ah, okay. You remember I asked you to investigate religion in a scientific way. I believe you showed some interest in that." Yahweh sighs. "Some. Well, the only way for that to happen is for you to experience it firsthand. Think of it as an experiment." Yahweh's brow raises at the suggestion. "There are many benefits that come from following Corbiter," says Lucifer. "Acquaint yourself with these benefits by becoming part of our leadership." "Leadership," Yahweh huffs. "What would I do with that?" "Many things, as you know. Either Dean Harrelhell or I will be promoted to oversee all of the labs on campus." "So?" Lucifer leans in close. "I can make you my right-hand man. You can decide which projects we take on. You would be the first to know about discoveries made here." Yahweh savors the thought. Lucifer steps back and opens his arms. "You can do anything that you want, run any experiment you desire. You will control what the other scientists do." "Would be nice. Together, we can change things. But first, you must prove yourself," Lucifer adds. Yahweh ignores the qualifier as he glances down on the marble table and recalls how Professor Harrelhell didn't support any of his proposed experiments. Like this bioprinting machine, the possibilities would be endless with that old fart out of the way, and then Gwendolyn's voice, no more than a whisper deep down, interrupts the savoring. "Prove yourself?" The clairvoyant caution moves Yahweh to examine Lucifer more closely. "Prove myself." "Aye. How?" "Just perform a little experiment to show that the loving free will gene does not exist." "Why don't you try that?" "They think that I am biased." "But you..." Lucifer smiles. It's a cold smile that shivers the body. The loving free will gene. That's Professor Harrelhell's personal project. The gene will be discredited if his theories fail. That old dog may be a pain in the ass, but he's a good and honest man. Lucifer smiles again, exposing white chiseled teeth. "Do the ultimate experiment. Kick the loving free will gene crutch away from humankind. Let us see what happens. See where our civilization goes from here." Something swells in Yahweh's throat. See where our civilization goes from there. But he can only swallow, hard, as he stares up at the beefy, shark-toothed man. He's got to contain his anger. The results have always been disastrous if he doesn't. Like that time when a kid punched his son, Alexander, in school. Yahweh got so mad that he trashed the laboratory. The incident set his experiments back a whole year. Maybe he inherited a faulty, loving free will gene, he wonders. No matter. The need to contain the rage is paramount. Need to go to a better place, away from here, to her, mentally, if not physically. Yes, to feel her love all around, her gentle tugs and pulls. That's not quite, but close to an orgasmic feeling. It's more of a shared sense of a oneness, bathed in the sensual vibrations of her thoughts, like soft metallic notes from a music box. The reverb brings out the quiet certainty, and more importantly, realization of true intent. Yahweh, pay attention, Lucifer complains as he glares in on Yahweh. Why did you fade out on me like that? It's rude. Wakening from his lullaby dream, Yahweh clears his throat, buoyed by a wave of confidence. He glares back. You're trying to convert me again. You want me to rig an experiment to fail just to prove your point. Lucifer eyes Yahweh closely. You've changed since the last trance. I was with my wife, and you wouldn't understand. She visit you like that often? Yes. But how do you know that was your wife? It was more likely Corbiter. Yahweh pushes back a smirk. I'm sure Corbiter wouldn't do the things that she just did to me. Ye should not make flippant remarks like that, Lucifer growls as he moves in close. Yahweh scampers to the side of the long marble table as his spunk scatters away. It seems Lucifer also has a temper. Perhaps he shouldn't have been so sassy. But as Yahweh heads for the door, he can't resist one last retort. Our civilization spent 2,000 years in caves trying to shake off its religious chains. Now here you are asking me to try new shackles on for size.